You are listening to Happy Jack's RPG Podcast. Pursuing the RPG hobby with reckless abandon.
Why, hello, and welcome to Season 27, Episode 19 of Happy Jack's RPG Podcast. My name is Stu.
I'm Stork!
I'm Kadave!
And I'm Kurt.
Kurt.
And
I'm Kurt, yes.
in this episode of Happy Jack's RPG Podcast, Trenchwork writes in with a clarification for his remote sometimes player. MJ in Georgia writes in about character personality and group compatibility. And Graf from Germany sends us a thank you and a confession. But first, if you'd like to email us, you can email us at happyjacksrpg@gmail.com. That's happyjacksrpg@gmail.com. We have social medias. We have Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and MeWe, HappyJacksRPG, all one word. That's HappyJacksRPG, all one word. And if you'd like to... Did I say the email part yet? If you'd like to email us, email us at happyjacksrpg@gmail.com. That's happyjacksrpg@gmail.com. If you would like to send us an email. If you want to watch the show live, we're on Saturdays at 11:04 a.m. Pacific time until after the first of the year. Then we're probably going to switch back to Friday nights. I'm guessing that will happen.
And the forum is no more.
And the forum is gone.
But I think we still have a pretty thriving Discord.
There is?
Yes, there is a fan Discord you can go to, and I don't know where that is. And if you want to watch us live, happyjacks.org/live. That's happyjacks.org/live. Before we get into the emails, there's something I've been trying to get some sort of like beer sponsorship thing for literally decades. I started a band about beer, waiting for someone to send me free beer because we write and sing and perform so many songs about beer, and it's never happened. I mean, we get free beer occasionally, but no one's ever actually gone to the things that, hey, I'm recognizing that you are an important person when it comes to beer. We're going to send you free shit. That's what I'm talking about, and that's never happened before.
A beer influencer.
A beer influencer, exactly. And, of course, I would also probably be the oldest influencer on the internet.
Not for beer influencers.
No, Robert Reich. Robert Reich is a little older.
But he's not. First off, he's not a beer influencer.
No, that's true. That's a good point.
Besides, who's going to trust a young beer influencer?
Right.
Really?
Exactly. Right.
Yeah.
So I just got to say, I got this care package. I got a call from the publicist from New Holland Brewery, or New Holland Brewing Company, I think is the actual official name of the place, and they've got this Dragon's Milk Stout. And I'm not going to drink. It's 11 a.m. here, so I'm not going to drink this yet because I'm still in coffee mode. But they sent me a bottle of beer, and here's my bottle of beer that they sent. And Dave actually has some there too.
I'll drink it.
You can drink it. Dragon's Milk Bourbon Barrel Aged Stout, 11% alcohol by volume.
It's not like you're going to do anything today. You're not going to go anywhere. You might as well.
I haven't even finished my first cup of coffee yet.
Stout and coffee go very well together.
They might.
Especially coffee stouts.
They also
would be.
They also sent me a little Dragon's Milk bourbon barrel aged stout glass that has like a little thingy on there, and it says
logo, yeah.
Back. And then the coolest thing they sent me, which is just like a little promotional deal, is what looks like a 1980s video game box. And I don't know if you can tell. When they printed this, they even printed it so it looks like it's worn out. Like, the edges get kind of...
It's
worn. That's
awesome.
super cool.
So
nice attention to detail.
Right. Isn't that awesome? And it kind of... Go ahead.
It's totally obvious that these guys are gamers, too, because there's no way you would go to that level of detail if you didn't have worn-out game books in your collection.
Yeah. If you weren't playing Wizardry back on the old...
Or even just a D&D box. I mean, because it does kind of harken back to the AD&D cover as well. It's got the same sort of color scheme going on.
See, that's what I thought when I first got it. That's what I thought. Oh my God, it's like an old version of the D&D box set, and then it comes with this little book. This is just a journal. So you can, but I opened it up. I'm like, oh shit! Did they write a role playing game? No, they didn't write a role playing game, but it looks like they did. So it comes with a little journal.
That is really, really cool.
And then the coolest thing that I thought this was the coolest thing because it is.
Come with dice?
No, it comes with floppy disks that aren't really floppy disks.
Yes,
they're fucking beer mats.
Coasters.
Yes,
goddamn coasters. But they look like little 3.5 floppies.
When Dragon's Milk wins,
Isn't that awesome?
That
I'm
is
like, okay,
truly
yeah.
awesome.
Not only have you figured out. First off, you sent me free beer in a little promotional package, but then you sent me the free beer that is being promoted in exactly the way that would victimize me.
And we are old enough to remember when we had to install a game with 32 floppy disks.
Yeah.
I can remember
let's spend 2
a bunch
hours.
of floppy disks to install. I don't know what it was. It might have been EverQuest. It might have been, I don't know. But it was and you had to have them in the order, and you had to wait, and the light would go on. Oh, man.
Now, apparently, it looks there's a link on here. I'm not sure if I'm supposed to give it out because it says it's for VIPs. But there may actually be an online version of this game. I will look while we're doing the show, and if it is,
That's rad.
So would that be a beer PG?
Yes.
I guess it would be, yeah. And the box even says that it is Dragon's Milk Experience, copyright 1997.
No, Dave's actually drinking one right now. Dave, you want to give a review of it? What's you say that you were actually a fan of it before?
Yeah. Like when Stu first put out the word that he was getting beer sent from this company, he sent it on our Happy Jack's Slack that he's like, I finally made it. But he was like, yeah, we're gonna it's super cool, and it's from this Dragon's Milk stuff, and I was like, dude, that's the beer that for the last 5 or 6 years of game cons I take as my special beer that I drink for the live podcast on the podcast. So when he said that, I was like, I haven't had any in a while. This staying at home thing, I haven't been going out and buying a ton of beer.
Yeah, but if you're going to drink a 7%,
if
you're going to drink a 7% beer, you might as well be staying at home for it. I mean,
yeah, totally. But so I as soon as Stu set that out, I ordered a few, and I was like, it makes me happy. It's just it is absolutely delicious. If
you were to give a haughty wine type review, how would you say? Is it sort of Episcopalian in its pretentiousness? Is it finished like an old sweat sock, or I mean, how is it?
It's it's very, very smooth. A lot of times when you get the bourbon barrel or alcohol barrel aged beers, they get a sharp note to them at the end, and they have just rounded that out beautifully with the whole stout thing. It's got a little bit of sweetness, but it's not something that you'd think, oh well, this is like a dessert beer. And at the end of the day, it's 11%, so you don't have to have that many to get there.
No, that's a glass of wine.
Yeah, it's good to go.
And is it it's a really dark stout? Is it
Yeah, it's very, very dark if you pour it.
It's as black as your background.
Mm-hmm. Black as his shriveled old soul.
It's Vanta Black. It's
Yeah.
Vanta Stout.
All right. There's a VIP code on here, but without the VIP code, and sometime at 5 p.m. today, I guess, and it looks like it's some kind of adventure game. It kind of reminds me of what was that pirate one?
Curse of
Monkey's Island. Yeah, Monkey's Island. But it looks like it's a web-based adventure game. So horde.dragonsmilk.com.
These guys went the extra mile with all these hidden Easter eggs. I salute them.
Yeah.
Is that Horde HORDE or HOARD?
HOARD.
Thank you.
All right.
Makes a difference.
I'm going to go ahead and start remote play, unless one of you wants to read the first email, because there's 4 of us and 3 emails. I'll go. Hello there, Jackers. I have to apologize for not sending this earlier, but life has been rather hectic with COVID-19. I fell behind on listening to your podcast to know that you'd read my first email and needed me to write back to clarify. Sorry for the delay. No worries. I wrote you several months. Well, he explains the whole thing, so I don't need to explain it myself. I wrote you several months ago to ask for ideas that might engage my gaming friend's daughter remotely in a game that we're going to play, as she won't be able to attend the game in person. This game takes place in the 1980s and is intended for adults who were alive back then. The daughter heard me talking with her dad about the game and was very interested in the idea of in-person RPG that could involve urban legends, which she is very into. She's never done any RPGs in person and is only familiar with computer RPGs, so this is fairly foreign to her, and she is trepidatious about being at the game in person. So remote interaction seems to be her happy, comfortable place for now. This may very well change once she gets a taste, and several of the members of this group have kids, so we are actively planning family-friendly games that are designed to include and entertain the kids in our lives. This particular game is not one of them, though. Most of the people in our group are public school teachers, paramedics, firefighters, and law enforcement officers, and other essential workers. So this year has been hell on us. This is our game to decompress and relax, and the conversation is definitely not safe for work or kids for that matter. Just the banter, not the game subject matter, which is why everyone involved was really comfortable with the phone call interaction with the kiddo. I will mention at this point that they were talking about having her be like sort of like a remote member of the party, but not really a member of the party, but like an asset they can reach out to get information.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, if you're familiar with comic books, there's a character called Oracle from the Batman universe, and she's sort of this. Yeah. Or if you're kids of a certain age, Kim Possible had a person that kept calling them in with missions.
Or if you watch
more modern, the Arrowverse has Overwatch, which is they actually made a joke about how Oracle was taken as a code name.
It's sort of the person in the chair archetype or trope.
And Abby in NCIS, half the time she's just the remote font of information.
That's it.
I've almost
Garcia in Criminal Minds.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, Garcia in Criminal Minds, same thing. Let's see, just inventor, just the banter, not the game subject, which was everyone involved in the interaction on the phone. It would have a finite time frame, and we wouldn't keep her up too late so she could do her schooling in the morning. We often game on school nights and well past when she should be asleep in her house over an hour away. I hope this clears up why she is not going to be at the gaming table for this particular game. We aren't just excluding her because she is young or female. This kiddo is like a goddaughter to me, and I can't wait for her to game in person with us. So back to my original question, do y'all have a novel ideas that will help grab her imagination and fire her enthusiasm for playing, running RPGs in this odd situation? Love the work you do. Trenchworks, the medic. So no ways to make it interesting for her to be this font of information that they would use like early on in the game session.
Well, the thing that comes to mind is literally have her do a little bit of homework or something, because this is the 80s, so there is no Google, right? And so if they have a question about something, have her Google it for them. Like have her go to the Wikipedia page and she can read off the Wikipedia page to them. And so it gives her a bit of involvement. It gives her something to do. Little kids are great at the internet, and then she can hear you guys react to it. Like, oh my God, she's so smart. How does she know?
Because she has a LexisNexis account.
Right.
But that way it gives her.
I don't even know if those were around in the 80s.
Effect in the game,
I was thinking
for sure.
I was thinking with the fact that she's is interested in urban legends, is using that as a sort of formulaic monster of the week sort of thing, like whatever each mystery has to do with some sort of urban legend, because there were tons of them, and I'm sure there's a repository of them somewhere. And what he could do is, as part of his game prep, says, "Hey, I'm going to do a game based on this urban legend." Well, Slender Man's not 80s, but the exploding cactus full of tarantulas.
Oh yeah, spiders.
Okay, let's start with that. Easy.
Still
one.
keeps me up at night.
Right. So
no cactuses in my house, I bet.
No cactuses. Yeah, the twitching cactus that explodes and it's full of tarantula eggs or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
Right. So it start with something like that, and let her do the research online and find out about all the details of it, so that she can basically present them like a case. Like,
Oh, yeah.
okay, we're dealing with this, and here's what I've been able to find out, blah, 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 blah. And also, but pre-game, have her share her research with the GM, so the GM can take the research she came up with and sort of weave what the mystery is going to be, whether it's going to be real or it's going to be a fake, like it really is an urban legend, or it's in this one case it's based on actual reality, which obviously is more
It's
interesting.
the old man in a mask.
Would have gotten away with it too if it weren't for the
Exactly,
Yes.
exactly. And I think that would be interesting because that would kind of sort of integrate her not only as a player but also kind of a little bit as a GM. And then all the crazy shit that we Google online when we're running a game that would get us put on a watch list.
Or yeah.
Get her put on the watch list instead.
I was joking about that at work. I can guarantee you were on watch list because
oh my
I was
God.
explaining, it's like, there's time when you're playing a superhero game and somebody wants to blow up a building. Like, how do you blow up a building?
How much C4 does it take to bring down a building?
That's all it takes. In fact, this conversation is probably enough for us to end up on a watch list. But it happens to anybody who games, and someday we're going to end up with Jesse Ventura and Alex Trebek knocking on my door. We'd like to talk to you.
Not Trebek anymore, but yeah.
Audio seems
Maybe so. That's
I
the
don't know.
scariest part.
That's a great way to get off the public grid there and back into your. But anyway, going back to this question here, I agree with you. It'd also be really cool if she and the GM just talk a little bit, and then she's able to maybe just do a little research or just have a little summary, because it sounds like she's interested in these things anyway. Because if she gets too much detail, it's gonna spoil the ending, kind of thing. Like,
Well,
Wildly
she's-
Tarantula.
But she's not
thing.
playing. She's not playing in the games, and she's
Right.
only in the beginning of it. So that if you use her as sort of like, here's the setup. She's Charlie for Charlie's Angels.
That's exactly what I
Yeah,
was thinking.
Exactly. That's a great idea. And then she can read off a little paragraph that she's written about it, and maybe she just does it from her memory if she's into it herself. But it's also fun for her to do more research into some of these urban legends, because we're old guys. We might know more than she knows, and she'd be like, the tarantula cactus I had no idea about. And be very excited to write a little summary about it.
Remember, someone had the
that.
sore on the arm, and they got bit by a spider, and it laid eggs inside of on their face. It's usually on their face. There was that. There's that one. There's a lot about spider eggs, but I'm trying to remember because those things used to
Earwigs.
spread in the 80s and 90s before the internet, before there was a Snopes. You used to hear all these crazy stories. The kidney, the guy waking up in the bathtub full of ice, and there's a note saying note and a phone saying to call 911 because you don't have any kidneys. That kind of shit.
Yeah. And then there's, the Mothman and all of these things that just before it was because back in the day people could doctor a photo and go, look what we found, and nowadays you can get it up on the internet and read all the metadata and go, come on.
I mean, you've got all the various classic cryptids, whether it's Nessie or the Jersey Devil or,
Sasquatch.
Sasquatch, whatever.
Chupacabra.
Chupacabra,
The
absolutely.
Lake Tahoe Nessie.
The Lake Tahoe Nessie.
Yeah.
Lake Champlain, Champ.
That's it,
Supposedly
Champ.
Yeah, Champ, who in Lake Champlain.
Oh, there's the urban legend about someone who got a capybara and brought it back from Central America thinking it was a dog.
Well, there's the other one I heard, which is the Mexican rat, where they got a really sick chihuahua and they bring it to the vet, and the vet's like, this isn't a dog, it's a rat.
Well, usually that story is a capybara because a capybara is a rodent, but they're freaking huge. They're like 3 feet long.
Yeah.
They're bigger than chihuahuas.
They're much bigger than
I
chihuahuas.
think the urban myth is called the Mexican pet, and there's variations on it.
And I think a chupacabra could probably eat a chihuahua.
A chupacabra could, but a capybara is a vegetarian. So
Oh, a capybara. I'm thinking. Oh, is capybara they're vegetarian?
they're herbivores.
Insectivore.
Yeah.
Aren't they insectivores?
Almost all rodents are herbivores except for rats and a few others.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I thought they were all sort of.
Yeah, otherwise we'd be
omnivores.
assaulted by beavers and muskrats every time we went into the wilds. Can you imagine?
All right.
I say almost all. Somebody's going to write in and say, actually, such and such rodents are omnivores or carnivores or whatever. But yeah,
They're opportunists, but still. Yeah.
Scavengers.
Yeah.
rats are not unique, but particularly anomalous amongst rodents for eating meat. So.
Don't discount insects, but I'm not going to go into discourse about
Well, insectivores. I think they distinguish between insectivores and carnivores. Aren't they?
To a certain extent, yeah.
I think. Okay. So, any other ideas for him about how to?
I mean, depends on how much work the GM wants to do, but like the GM could even make like, you know, like a Henry Jones Sr. Grail diary of urban legends, and give it to her ahead of time.
Oh yeah.
And then be like, here's all these things that the crazy old librarian that disappeared left behind, and you found it when you went to check out your favorite book on, fairy portals, or whatever.
My daughters had a bunch of those books as a kid, like the Dragonology books and the Fairytopia books, and they're like scrapbooks of like dragon. There's bits and pieces. They're very cool reading because they're really interactive. But something like that would be really neat. But
like even,
I mean,
it could even go as far as to have like like a fold out little mini map of an area so that they could describe it over the phone. Like, oh, it looks like this cave's in a forest, or it's sort of near the Y in a river, or stuff like that.
you could even create a whole backstory for her too. Like, she's really from the future, so this is very much like 12 Monkeys thing, and she's calling back to let these people know what's going on.
Well, according to Ziggy,
yeah.
It can be a lot of fun. There's a lot of places to go, but definitely having her set this stuff up and read the stuff is really cool. If you want to pre-record it, you could do that, but I think it'd be neat to just do it live, and then she could hear everybody sort of interacting with her for a half hour or whatever it is.
Also, I totally sympathize with the 80s game set that's made for those of us that lived through it, because I people that listen to the show know I'm a huge fan of the Tales from the Loop universe from Free League, and I tried to run it with younger people once, and it was it didn't land right at all. Like it was like they were like, well, why can't we just do this? And I'm like, well, you can't, because that's not a thing.
Didn't have cell phones.
Your computer didn't hook up to the internet unless you were super computer nerd.
And the internet was
and it
really
wasn't an internet. It was you dialed up some other dude's house.
We were talking about the little bulletin board things with a 300 baud modem. I lived those days. It was awful.
Yeah. You're kind of... I'm sorry, Stu. I was having a hard time understanding you there.
Your sound got weird.
Is it better? Is it better now?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, maybe
is it better now?
Too low.
Hello?
Yeah, it's much
testing. Better. Yeah, I remember I had a Commodore 64 with a dial-up modem, a 300 baud modem, and it was and you watch this. You read the text as it's transmitted, and you can read faster than the data transmission rate.
Yeah, we had a 900 baud on
a 12
Mac, on an old Mac, and I mean, you're talking about loading games that took 32 floppies. I also remember when not only did the game fit on one floppy, but the operating system fit on that same floppy because there was no hard drive.
Right. Oh, yeah.
I remember AOL used to send us floppies in the mail to install their system, and you wouldn't use AOL, but you would just rewrite over the floppies so that you could restore it. I'm like, oh, thanks for the free storage.
A little piece of tape over that write protect hole, and then there
exactly.
Even worse, when you went out to buy a new video game for your Commodore or Amiga, and you got the box home, and you opened it up, and you just got a little spiral-bound book, and you had to sit there for 2.5 hours to program in the game.
Remember Zork did that, and I think
Zork came on a floppy.
I don't remember it on a floppy. I remember having to go and type into some. It was
Zork. You type in Zork, but no, Zork was
no. To get the game downloaded, I had to go somewhere, and it was like Dave was describing.
You were pirating. You were pirating it.
Possibly.
I
better watch out. Those Infocom lawyers will come after you.
Right now, back in the Commodore 64 days, I had hundreds and hundreds of floppy disks of pirated games. I used to take the 5 1/4 floppies, and you'd get one of those little hole punch things because you could make them double-sided. They didn't come that way. Unless you bought them, they're more expensive double-sided, but they put the coating on both sides in the disc anyway. So you just put a little, get a hole punch, put a little thing, and you could flip it over, and then you had a double-sided disc. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're old. Yeah.
I can remember, it wasn't even that long ago. It was like when I was in my other house, even still having dial-up. And I remember the day I clicked over. This is when Lord of the Rings was first dropping. And I wanted to watch the trailers. Because remember, Peter Jackson was posting updates and stuff. And I was so excited for Lord of the Rings. And I remember spending all day once having it download. I went to work and I came back and the download stopped 15 minutes before it was fully loaded and had to start all over again. And that's when I blew a gasket and then got was it DSL or
probably?
No, it was still through the phone line, but it was something.
ISBN. ISDN.
Someone mentioned something. Someone's being persnickety about a 900 baud modem. I don't remember one either. I remember 300, 1200, 9600, 14.4.
It might have been a 1200.
I remember I had a 32.
There was after a 14.4 was the 32K, and I think that was the last dial-up modem. If you wanted faster than that, I think you had to go to DSL, didn't you? Oh no, there was no 96.
There was 14.4, there was 28.8, and there was 56.
28. Okay, 28. I remember 28.8. I don't remember. I may have gotten DSL after that. So I
bought a special modem that was an add-in board that you plug in, and it actually had two 56K modems on it.
So you could tie up
plug it into two different phone lines. You could dial up, and then it would download simultaneously through two connections.
Wow.
To get you 128.8, boy. Woo!
This house that I live in now, the guy that lived here worked at JPL. Anyway, I went down to the basement to get phone lines hooked up, and they had that going on, and that's exactly what was going on. See, because back in the day, that was as fast an internet connection as he could get. Was basically having two phone lines dedicated to the internet. So yeah, boy, we're old.
Yes.
Yeah.
Horror stories.
All right.
Nobody cares.
Character personality and group compatibility from MJ in Georgia. Who would like to go on?
Sure, I'll take this one. I'm not sure how to start this. I've never sent you folks at Happy Jacks an email before. My name is MJ, and I live in Georgia.
Hi, MJ.
Hi, MJ. I've been playing tabletop RPGs on and off since the early 80s, ranging from GURPS.
Yeah!
He's not listening. From
Yeah!
There he goes. Ranging from GURPS to White Wolf games. Since COVID, I have been watching a lot of streams and videos of people playing various TTRPGs and have noticed what seems to be a pattern to me. Also, please overlook any spelling or grammar errors.
No.
I haven't found any yet. I won't go into a list of the various shows I've watched, but let me say it's a lot. In a home game environment, playing just with friends, I never really noticed any issues with character personality types and or group compatibility. But I have noticed something with streamed or recorded play sessions, and I am curious what your take is on this. I have noticed that a number of these shows always seem to have these overly aggressive, needlessly prickish character personality types.
I'm feeling attacked.
Granted, in some cases, these personality types are consistent with the character archetype, such as the abrasive half-orc who is an a-hole as a survival mechanism. However, I am noticing more and more that the players in these other games tend to play perpetually rude, aggressive douche nozzles that are always looking for a fight. They meet a new NPC and their first interaction with the character is to be insulting, belittling, degrading, and just downright hostile for no apparent reason. This seems to be a recurring behavior, whether it's a steady group of friends or just random people coming together for the first time. Though this does seem to happen more often with strangers thrown together than longtime groups. Almost as if they're trying to one-up each other in who can be the bigger douchebag. Am I seeing something that's not there? Perhaps it's just the sessions that grab my attention that have these douchey characters. Am I just noticing the a-hole characters more because I find them annoying and boring, played out, and overly used?
Ding, 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 ding.
What are your thoughts on needlessly aggressive douchebag characters? On a related note, could you give some advice or share your thoughts on personality types with regard to group compatibility? You have 4 players sitting at your table, and everyone creates a stoic pragmatist or realist personality type that don't mind getting their hands dirty for their characters, except for that one person who creates an overly bubbly, exuberant character that refuses to fight unless forced to. Perhaps they tried talking to their opponent, trying
Fuck that.
Please stop talking to my experience points.
Right.
Trying and avoid conflict beyond all reasonable sense, such as a group of NPC criminals hell-bent on killing one or more members of the group, and that one player argues, "Let me talk to them first." Is personality type compatibility something you consider as part of creating a group dynamic, or do you think just letting a player play whatever personality type they want, regardless of group dynamic, is fine? It only really being an issue when it makes the game less enjoyable. What are your thoughts on these two things? I will say the first campaign I ever ran, which was D&D 4th edition, and after 8 months of this game meeting fortnightly, I had to call the game because after 8 months the 6 players had not gelled into a party. I mean, like, the players hadn't, not the characters. The players couldn't get along. And I was like, well, this was a bad choice of players on my part, and I have been much more careful about that in the games I've run since. I haven't always been good at it, but...
You don't really know that going in, you know? You see a bunch of people that are your friends, and you think, well, let's just get them together and see what happens. There's some telltale people, like, you wouldn't put together, you just know. But other times, you just like, why wouldn't they get along? And then, sure, it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
You can't blame yourself for that fully.
Oh, no, I never blame myself. Have you met me? Actually, that's not true. I blame myself for everything. But
it's all your fault.
But, no, I mean, it's a tricky thing, and having run at cons where you get, a true roll of the dice in terms of who shows up to the table, it's a tricky thing. If you have the luxury of being able to pick and choose who your players are, like some of us do, then I would actually try to work with that, because we all have that one friend. Some of us have more than the one who, you've known them for a long time, and they are loyal and abrasive and friendly and caustic.
Hey,
and
I'm right here.
We're both sitting right here. Not Dave. He's not caustic.
No, Dave's not abrasive at all. Dave's soft and fluffy.
And witty and charming.
I've got nothing to argue with there, especially the fluffy part.
And although you might really enjoy playing with that person, you know that they probably won't get along with a lot of other people.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But it's a tricky thing.
I think
I don't, as far as the shows that you've been watching, I don't know what you've been watching, but I have not seen that much in the shows that I've been the streamed games that I've been watching, and I've been watching a lot of them since working from home. So
I think if there are people who are streaming them for others' consumption, not simply for their own game, but if they're like streaming it on Twitch like we do and shit like that, I wonder if it is people who have the somewhat mistaken belief that shocking equals entertainment. Because sometimes it does. We know that more than a lot of people do. But there's also a line, and there is. I've seen people do things and try. They're like constantly trying to push the envelope and constantly trying to shock, in an attempt to sort of like outdo each other, they're
Yes.
equating that as entertainment in and of itself, and it isn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have definitely seen streamed games where the people there are trying to one up each other or trying to keep being the big personality at a table. Like, sometimes it happens, sometimes it totally doesn't, even when you have really big personalities at a table. But, like, I have definitely seen some that, yeah, it's kind of like, okay, maybe everybody should just take a step back and, like, remember that we're here to play a game as a group, right? Like, it's not always about being the star of a show. Like, sometimes being an ensemble cast is awesome.
Yeah. And yeah, a lot of people do seem to forget the second rule of improv. Because the first rule is yes, and we all know that one. We all know that rule. The second rule is listen.
Yes, it's hard to yes and if you don't know what the person just said because you
If everything after and is ignored. There's the opposite is also true. I was talking to a guy at work who's got a really quiet player, and he was a little concerned about his fun, right? Because he just doesn't spark off, or maybe it just takes him a little while longer to process what the scene is, and by the time he's done with that, everybody's moved on. And sometimes the bigger personalities take over. And I was describing to him too about sometimes there's just people that are sort of natural performers and are louder, and so they jump in immediately, and it's like you have to, like we always say, you have to have the big boy conversation. Everybody sits down and says, give everybody a chance to shine, or give them a moment.
Right.
But also, going back to the whole thing about watching stuff online, I'm very conscious of when I'm gaming that it is also a performance that I'm being recorded for. Right. And there's more of an element of performance attached to it than I would be if I was just gaming when I'm not being filmed. And I think that also explains part of the douchebag character that you're seeing. Yeah, because a lot of people are trying to move the story along, do something that seems interesting, and sometimes just throwing wrenches just to make it more of an interesting story to watch. Because when you're not being filmed, or even back in the day, sometimes there were whole game sessions where we were indecisive and didn't do anything. Sometimes you need that character to say, screw it, I'm going down that hallway. You guys sit around and talk some more while I go and do this.
Okay, sorcerer.
Sometimes you need that guy, right? I'm not saying that it's always a good thing, but sometimes you need that guy to move the story forward. Because I think Stu's complained, like, I think in our original
just do something, do anything.
Yeah, you even said that. You were like, just do something.
I promise you there's no wrong thing you can do.
Just do something.
Do anything.
It's been 4 sessions and you guys haven't done anything.
All you're doing is putting pins in things. The one of the things I think I mean, just speaking more generally about character compatibility, character personality compatibility, is before everyone makes their characters, have that tone conversation. I mean, I personally, I wouldn't say like, okay, everyone make a character that can get along with everyone else. That's boring to me. I would rather have a party where it's like, okay, here's sort of the tone we're looking for. We're either looking for, like a gritty, realistic tone, or we're looking for, like a 4-color comic book tone, or whatever it is. Whatever kind of tone you want for the game. Not what specifically happens in it, but sort of like the flavor that you want for it. And have people build characters into that flavor. Even if the characters themselves aren't compatible with each other and don't get along at first, that can make an interesting story. That is part of the story, is how these characters are transformed from who they start out as. Maybe they don't trust each other. Maybe they hate each other. I mean, we always give shit to the whole idea that, everyone meeting in a tavern, it's so cliche and boring and blah, blah, blah. Well, it is, but it doesn't have to be. Because you could have 4 strangers thrust into a situation where they don't know each other, where for a limited amount of time they're forced to trust each other because suddenly at this one moment in time, all of their goals are pointed in the same direction. And see what, that's part of the story, is the transformation of these 4 people who don't know each other or don't like each other into a group of people who do come together and do whatever it is that needs to be done to save the day. And that is part of it. And I think that is more, that transformation to me is more interesting than having the one character who's just going to be a dick to everyone else. Because I've been watching the 68 seasons of NCIS recently. And
NCIS or
NCIS, and I'm now in season 17 or 18. I'm in the almost the most recent season.
Oh, you're halfway through.
And I remember, well, Tony DiNozzo was gone. That was one of the main characters for like the first 35 years of the show.
Right.
So, and Tony DiNozzo's character was a prick through most of it. And he would like start to be a prick, and then all of a sudden he'd show a little bit of humanity, and then he'd become a prick again for a while, and then he'd become a little human again. And it like you can almost tell like it took the actors a few years to kind of see what the vibe of that character was going to be. But as time went on, the character sort of transformed. That to me is interesting. He was a horribly unlikable character to me when I first watched the first, I don't know, 24 seasons of the show, and as time went on. And his character started to mature because he basically was a frat boy, kind of.
Sure.
And he basically kind of transformed into someone who isn't quite as much of a prick. And when he left the show, I'm like, oh, I'm going to miss him now. Whereas if he had left, 5 seasons in, oh, thank God they got rid of that guy. So, and that makes it. I think having having characters have those transformative moments. And let the players know, too. I mean, if you want to have characters where there's party conflict, that's fine. Make sure everyone's on board with it. And I don't think you need to actually sit down and have, like, the writer's table where everyone discusses what's going to happen with the personalities of the characters as the game goes on. Let the game figure that out, right? Figure that out as the story happens and let that kind of happen organically. But I think it's okay if someone starts out with a character who is abrasive with the rest of the party, and let's see what happens. Does another player character save that character's life at some point, and maybe suddenly that person becomes a little more humble? That would be an interesting story.
Everybody loves Wolverine for that very reason. He was sort of the outsider, and he was abrasive. He was a dick, and he was the rent store in the parties. But then, as the X-Men franchise wears on, he becomes much more, and everybody loves him, right? And Ahsoka Tano, the same thing. When Dave Filoni created her, he made her really annoying, and he got so much hate mail for her when he first created her. But originally, his whole thought was Ahsoka Tano.
Oh yeah.
And Dave Filoni from Clone Wars, who directed and wrote that. And when she first showed up, he got hate mail. People hated her, and by the time Clone Wars ended, she was the most loved character.
I loved her from the beginning.
That was his plan to begin with. He made her annoying and young, and she had a character arc where she
started out as a whiny teenager.
Exactly, and people couldn't stand her at first, but he knew he had a couple of episodes that already plotted out where they were going to be transformative for her. So.
And she also had a very
interesting.
And she had a very tragic arc in her story too. I mean, her spoilers on a cartoon that's 10 years old, but her arc where she ends up leaving is like very, very heartbreaking. And then it's awesome. And as things happen later on when she starts appearing in other shit, it's like, oh yeah, best character ever.
Yeah, it is.
Now speaking.
But that's the ideal. That's what everybody I think is going for. And again, the douchey characters that you're probably seeing, I'm hoping that's people's plan is to soften that character as they go. Sometimes it's just an easy default. It's like it's easy to play the douchey barbarian because that's kind of what they are, as opposed to a pacifistic barbarian.
The thief that steals shit. All of those things. Right. If you're going to do one of those transformative arcs. Don't play the long game.
Yeah, you got to do it pretty quick.
Let everyone else at the table know that there's a lot. I mean, first off, who was it? Dirk G in the forum says that it's a player compatibility. It's not PC compatibility. Friction between PCs whose players are comfortable with it is great. Right.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, and I think, but don't. If you're going to play a character that's going to go through the classic douchebag to not douchebag story arc.
The douchebag redemption story arc?
The douchebag redemption story arc. If you're going to do that, Don't play the fucking long game and say, I'm not going to even start not being a douche for 12 sessions. I mean, come on. Show people that there's a light at the end of the tunnel. Even if they're into it, it's going to get old.
I had a player who did that in one of my games. Who I don't know. I don't know if he planned a redemption arc. He was absolutely a douche and all that horrible stuff, but I don't know. He never told me that he was on a redemption arc. He never told the other players he was on a redemption arc, and a lot of those players won't play with that guy anymore.
See, that may not be a character
that brings us back to
problem.
the other half of his question, which is, what do you do when you suddenly realize that your players don't all get along? And I don't know if there's really an answer for that, because as a GM, you, with the best of intentions, get people together that you like that are thinking going to play well together. And I know, when Kimmy's been setting out games, she's very careful about the personalities she puts together. But there's no formula for it. You can't really tell. Sometimes the people you think would get along don't. Sometimes it's the game system.
Oh, that's why I'm
Sometimes
not in any of the games.
No, I'm just saying that I don't know if there's a formula for that.
We've cut back severely on the number of games we're having now, too.
With the best of intentions, you get a gaming group together, and then as you just said, 8 months into it, you realize to your horror that no, these guys don't really like each other. They're just getting together to game and going away. Oh, what have I done?
Well, a lot of times that kind of solves itself, because people, if they really are in a group that they don't feel they're compatible with, they're going to start making excuses to not be there. Unless they love gaming so much and have no other opportunity to do it, you're going to know, because people are going to start making. I don't want to play.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's a result of the game. Maybe they're just not that into it, which happens. Sometimes people are distracted at that point in their lives, or maybe just the game is going. It's just they're just not that into it this time around, and that can cause people to be just sort of like not really there and not really bringing it. But I think if you knew how to get people together that are great, you should start as a matchmaker, because I can't tell you there's no formula for that.
No, and that's one of the advantages for me of having cultivated many different circles of friends is that when I run a game, I bring people in that don't necessarily know each other, but who I think, based on my interaction with them in real life, might work together. And so, like this game that I'm running right now, I've got a guy I've gamed with for over a decade. I've got my little sister, who I've never gamed with, but it's my sister. So, and
you've played games together your whole life.
Well, I moved out when she was 7.
Messing with her head.
But and a few other people, like somebody from Happy Jacks and such, and just grabbing here and there, and the party is working great together. So
here's a bit of advice that I think Stu has sort of brought up in various terms, so I'm going to crystallize it, which is it's always a good idea when you first start a game to have an end point. Don't just start with an open-ended game, so we're just going to play this till it ends. Because then, if it turns out your party isn't getting along, it gives you an out.
Oh, yeah.
Right? After 7 sessions, when your story arc is completed, you can say, that was great. If it turns out the players are really hating each other. Oh, that was great, yay, and we're done. But if it's going on, and Stu has done this with our parties, like, this is a natural ending I have planned, but do you guys want to go on? Then, it gives them, but it gives you an out. Because if you just say, let's get together and game, and don't really have a point, then you're stuck.
Yeah. I actually had someone jump out after the first chapter of my game because she just wasn't feeling it. Not the players. She had no problem with players. She wasn't enjoying playing D&D as a system. I was like, all right, fine. It's not for everybody.
Right.
But, we were able to finish out the chapter, and then her character went her way, and we, continued the rest of the game. So
I know also, too, that sometimes where you are in your life, I've had games with the same group that I've had great times, and I've had games with the same groups which hasn't been as great, and it's not them, it's me and where I am in my head at that point in my life. And you can't plot that out. You can't. There's no formula for that. So, it's an organic thing. Some days I have great days, and some days I have bad days, and some days you get together on a bad day in a group, and you're just not feeling it. So,
right.
It's life.
like one of the characters I played on a Happy Jacks actual play that got me the most hate was in that Masks game when I made the inheritor of Mr. Clean's powers.
Oh yeah.
Like I got so many people that sent me comments about, I can't believe, man, you would just ruin the tone of that game. Like everybody else made these serious characters, and then you came in trying to be a joker, trying to be the funny guy. You ruined it.
Fucking
you
Dave.
ruined Masks. You ruined PBTA. You should go jump in a lake. Like,
Wow.
like I got a lot
yeah.
of angry PBTA fans that were upset at me not doing that when I was like, I legitimately had a tone conversation with the whole group at the table to be like,
on camera or off camera?
This was pre-game.
Oh, okay.
So it was before we did our character gen session because I had this idea and I
so
was
the
like,
listeners didn't realize that there had already been a tone thing to them. Okay.
Indeed, but I was like, oh man, even I've even had the conversation with Adam because he watched that game before he knew me, like before we had ever met each other, right? And he was like, when you made that character, I was real. I don't know about this guy. Like I don't know how that's going to work out. And then he's like, by the end of it, I thought it was the most awesome thing ever. Like. And I'm like, that was the whole idea, was I was not trying to play it to just derail the game into haha funny corporate-sponsored superheroes. It was... No, I wanted to play this idea of a character that got famous powers.
Right.
And had to deal with that being a teenager.
Yeah, no, that's a legit... Also, anyone who claims that an individual ruined an entire game system gives that individual way too much credit.
Right? I was like, wow. I feel like there's a whole group of people that have published things. That
If you do have that
talk to
power,
me first.
if you do have that power, there's a couple of games I want to put you in.
Yeah.
I've had to learn not to read the comments. I just can't anymore. You know, and that's part of the thing of doing this stuff again as in a podcast. You're putting yourself out there, and people are going to comment on you whether they like you or not, and you can't believe either one.
They're mostly going to comment if they don't like you.
Turns out.
90% of people that take time to comment are angry people.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
I actually had the conversation with a guy at work, which is, you know, he's dealing with a bunch of people that are ROLL players, and he wants to ROLE. It's a new discovery for him. He's like, oh my god, and he's derailed and made choices like these guys are metagaming, sending notes to each other back and forth, saying, all right, here's what we're going to do, and you're going to do this, and you're going to do this. He goes, no, I'm going down the corridor, right? And I had the explanation about how those are the moments people remember. I still get people giving me shit about my sorcerer walking down the corridor.
That's right.
Nobody remembers what happened before or after that moment. Nobody really does. But everybody remembers me doing that. And I said, those are the fun moments of the games. Those are the stories that you tell around the campfire later on. It's those moments of character development, of characters playing themselves, of doing their motivations. Because my character was an arrogant sorcerer who was spoiled. And he didn't realize, you know, where his magic powers came from, and he got a whole bunch of new powers. He was like, "I'm invincible. I'm going to go try my new power set. Yay!"
Basically, gods.
Right. You know, and got his ass kicked. But and the whole party was doing the meta thing. All right, we're going to do this. You're going to do this, and we're going to do that. I'm like, you guys talk. I'm going to go down and see what's in the corridor.
Oh yeah, they were all set up. They were like, we're going to do this the right way. Everything's going to be perfect, and Storko's strolling off in the opposite direction and triggers this horrible thing that they all kind of figured was going to happen, and it was awesome. And it was also one of the longest combats we've ever had, ever.
Right.
Because I put you guys. It was a character. It was a monster I made up myself, and it was sort of a controller class, and basically would grab onto you and pull you, and that kept doing that to the party healer. And kept pulling the party healer away from everyone, out of range of being able to heal them. And they're like, "Fuck!" and they go chase after him.
It wasn't a TPK, but it was a hard combat. And I do remember we had all gotten up to a new tier, so we all had new powers, and our normal defender wasn't there. So somebody was playing a defender that hadn't really played one before. So there was a bunch of learning going on anyway, because nobody knew what their new powers could do.
Oh yeah, everyone had just leveled up. That's right.
I
Everyone had just leveled up.
I sort of did a whole.
You did what you do.
What's that guy's
Leroy
name?
Thornton.
Leroy Jenkins.
Yeah, you absolutely Leroy Jenkinson.
But anyway, those are the moments that people talk about, which is not to say that everybody needs to go and start throwing wrenches into their games. I'm just saying that oftentimes those choices that aren't great make for the best stories, and oftentimes make for a much more interesting combat or interesting scene than you ever would have had if everybody just played it safe.
I agree. Now, we're running a little long, so I'm going to skip the next email. We'll do that next week. But I wanted to mention, because Stork, I'll be careful about what I say. But the second season of Mandalorian, the last episode dropped on Friday, and I didn't start. Well, I no longer, I won't wait for shows. So I didn't start watching season 2 until last week. So I could watch almost the whole thing, and then the last episode dropped yesterday, and I watched the last episode.
How did you avoid spoilers that whole time? Because I can barely do it
I didn't.
with one day.
Yeah,
I couldn't.
24 to 48 hours is the longest I can dodge the
I couldn't.
internet.
I didn't. I mean, I found out all kinds of big surprises inadvertently because people post shit and they don't think about it. So I'm like, oh, well,
It's not even
whatever.
people, just news articles come out that's like suddenly there's a shot of Rosario Dawson as Ahsoka, and you're like, I guess that's a thing that's happening.
No, I wasn't going to mention
Couldn't
that.
avoid it.
But okay. But first off, it is the most fan servicey show I think I've ever seen in my entire life. So much so, it's funny. Because the exact thing that I want to have happen in every fucking scene is exactly what happens. Or it's something better than what I could think of. Every goddamn time. So, I mean, because I have two criticisms of what happened in the show. But I just want to say off top, series one is fantastic series. Absolutely loving it. And I love the fact that it's basically kind of a Western. Like, even more of a Western than, like, the original movie was. It's like way a
Samurai
Western.
film rolled into one. It's
Right.
He's literally taken shots exactly from like Kurosawa films and like the exact shot is there. They've done side by side comparisons.
Everything about it is just fantastic. The production value, it's just great. I have two criticisms. One is something that did not start with this. It started, I want to say, with The Force Awakens. No, it started with Rebels.
Okay.
And it was an episode of Rebels where three or four of the old clones are retired, and for some reason they're not dead. And do you know which episode I'm talking about? And they end up dressing up as stormtroopers.
It's like only one of the like 4 episodes of Rebels I've actually seen.
Okay. And there's like these big giant walking land machines. That episode. Okay. So at one point they end up putting on stormtrooper armor, and one of them is making a comment about the fact that he can't hit anything because he can't fucking see. Right? So this all goes back to the original series where the stormtroopers don't hit anything, right? And it ends up becoming where it started out as just simply a thing that was probably never designed. It was simply a matter, that probably in the script someone would write the scene. Okay, there's a hail of blaster fire as so and so and so and so run across, and then this happens, right? Or things like that. So they want to look dramatic, so they have a bunch of blaster fire happening everywhere, right? Lucas probably, when he did the first movie, never intended to make it a running joke that stormtroopers can't hit the side of a fucking barn.
Of course not.
Right.
Why would you do that? Right.
Furthermore, someone, and this has got to be 10, 12 years ago that I saw this. Someone did a meme where they put a bunch of frames and they sort of put up this by studying the films, the original 3. Realizing that the stormtroopers don't hit anyone whenever Luke Skywalker's on the screen. Has any of you seen this meme? And someone went scene by scene and said, okay, when the stormtroopers are actually shooting and actually hitting people, Luke Skywalker's not in the scene. And the theory behind that is they all know that Luke Skywalker is a priority target and is not to be killed. They may not know why. They may not know it's Darth Vader's son, but they've been ordered to not shoot him. So I'm aiming high. So someone came up with this whole sort of thing to sort of explain this coincidence, which I thought was really kind of cool. But then in this episode of Rebels, they came along and they said, "Oh, I can't see," so they sort of canonized the fact that no, stormtroopers just can't hit anything, and they can't hit anything because their helmets are shitty.
You know, and I like Bill's explanation for that better. Just to jump
But
this,
then
which is it's the weapons there are made by the lowest bidder in a galaxy, in a universe full of low bidders.
But
the
here's my
weapons are made
problem.
by the guy that
I didn't
won
get
the
to my
lowest
problem yet. So it became even more of a joke in Mandalorian. In Mandalorian, because someone makes a comment about the stormtroopers, oh, they can't hit the side of a barn, or something to that effect. So it's now even more canonized, and all it did is make them inconsequential. And now you get a situation where it's like, anytime, oh, there's a bunch of stormtroopers here. Well, why the fuck are you worrying about them? Everyone knows they can't hit the side of a fucking barn. Just kill them all. You know what I'm saying? So
There's even a scene with two stormtroopers sitting there talking about it.
Yeah.
In one of the episodes.
Oh yeah, but the whole thing is they turned what started out as just a dramatic choice, and they've turned it into canon, and now your stormtroopers are no longer
a threat.
They're no longer a threat.
Not the elite, cool troopers that they were supposed to be. Yeah.
So what do? They have to come up with more elite things, which is like, okay, whatever. The other thing, and this is just like a minor bitch, is the name. The name pissed me off. I was like, really?
The name The Mandalorian?
No.
If
you haven't seen the series, you probably don't know what I'm talking about. But the name, it's like someone swallowed a fucking Scrabble set and puked up, and like, that's good enough. I'm like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
It's a random name generator, and you got to pick the right one. You don't just pick the first one that comes up.
I think the problem with that is also that they just made it into such a thing. Like the fact that they didn't give a name for so long.
Yeah, that's true.
And then by the time they finally did, everybody was so anxious to find out what it was.
Yeah.
That like people came up with the common parlance that will never go away.
Yes,
right? Because that's the term that my kids all use. Look, they bought me a freaking Christmas shirt with it.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
Like.
Oh yeah, no, it definitely.
In a universe with a guy named Dooku, come on.
You know what? It's on that level. And it's like, really, stop.
And besides, if Hodor can be completely ruined by Hold the Door, then that's the worst ever.
I don't mind that as much.
Ugh.
Because Hodor itself is not a stupid name. Hodor.
Is it though?
No, it's the name you would kind of expect for the village idiot. And it fits. It fits. The backstory behind it's a little weird, a little lame, but it fits. But this, it was like, no. It's like it's Snoke's, the big bad guy in episode 7. Snoke. It's like, what the fuck is that name? Where'd you come up with that?
That's
ominous.
With an N.
That's not ominous. It's just, come on.
Snake with an O.
Yeah, that too. Yeah. See, it's a snaky smoke or a smoky snake.
Yeah. And Windu Mace Windu was supposed to be Windy originally, like Windy Draw. I'm not kidding.
That would be terrible.
It was Windy.
I would pay.
I'm like, you're really gonna have the world's baddest Jedi named Windy?
That's like naming someone fart with a PH.
I would pay a significant amount more than it costs to take my whole family to see the prequel Star Wars movies with Samuel L. Jackson doing a Windy George through the whole thing for all of Mace Windu's lines.
Yes.
That would be the best experience I can imagine. Like, it can't be better.
Lucas has a very strange name thing generator anyway.
It's not him anymore.
Tatooine is a really weird name. It's
I
become
think
part of the lexicon now.
Tatooine, that sounds like that to me, it just sounds alien, which I think is cool. Some of the naming is fantastic. Darth Vader. Darth Vader's a fucking fantastic name. For a villain, that's a great fucking name.
Yeah, even though it literally means, like, Dark Father. But, yeah. I mean, Luke Skywalker was originally supposed to be Star Runner.
Star Killer.
Star Runner, and then Star Killer, and then Skywalker, I think.
Yeah, he's hit or miss with his names. I gotta say. I mean, there's some, but I know what you're saying, and in the pantheon of I mean, even Lord of the Rings, there's some names there that are so hard to pronounce or read that you get frustrated and just gloss over them.
Well, yeah, but I mean, you kind of would expect that from
And
Elven
why
names.
would you name your two villains so similar? There's Saruman and
Okay,
Sauron.
yeah.
How am I supposed to keep these two separate in my head?
Had
Yes,
that
we shall
problem the
go
first
to-
time I ran it. Yeah.
we shall go to this immensely fantastical land and city of Rivendell, and we shall cross the Emyn Wheel and the horrible plains, all to take it to Mount Doom.
So, I mean, it's an ongoing problem in fantasy novels and stuff with bad naming and just some people. Yeah, you can't win.
No.
That was like he asked his niece or nephew, like, what's a good name for a terrible mountain?
And also, it looks like 2 spin-off series announced.
3.
3
There's many, yeah.
Off of what's the third? I didn't catch the third. I caught the one in the last episode. Obviously, that was at the end.
If you have not seen the last episode, the only thing I'm going to say is watch all the way through the credits.
Oh yeah, you got to watch past the credits. Yeah.
Watch all the way past the credits.
There's a
That's
thing.
the only thing I'm going to say. No.
I just do it. I like
spoilers.
the artwork.
See, Jolene is saying names are hard. I don't know if they are. I don't know if names are hard, because I think that I mean, especially if you're talking about when it's something like, yes, a GM sitting there trying to come up with a name off the top of his head. I've come up with the shittiest names that anyone's ever come up with, so I have no room to criticize. But I mean,
No,
if
you
you've
came
got
up with a perfectly good name, you just use it for everybody.
okay, well that's different because it's
Like you come up, Abigail's a perfectly good name.
it is, and
for
it's
a character.
and especially in that period of time, it was probably very popular. I would imagine it was probably a very common name, and I think there've been a lot of first ladies that have had that name too, at least one.
Abigail Adams.
Right? Wasn't
But again, you've come up with great names. Birdstaff is a remarkably great name, but then Abigail is sort of uninventive. But it's not that you're not inventive. It's just sometimes you just don't come up with a great name.
Look, I have been known to take hours when playing a freaking video game.
to come up with the right name.
I get through character creations, like name your character. I'm like, oh damn, and I'll walk away. I'll go make lunch. I'll come back. I'll go.
Because
I'll
there's no
look for
going
my
back
notes.
once you name your character. Yeah, you're stuck with that name.
Yeah.
So I will make characters that have 2 names, not like a first name and a last name, but like have 2 completely different names. One is an alias, just because I can't choose between the 2. Like, well, he used to be known as blank, but now he goes by this name. And it's part of a secret past.
When you finally come up with a good name you like.
Which, by the way, I cannot recommend highly enough watching the trailer for Nobody if you haven't seen it.
yeah.
Really?
I keep seeing ads for it. But
Yeah, Bob Odenkirk as like a dude that's it's the Bob Odenkirk John Wick. Like
Same
Yeah.
director, and people saying it takes place in the same universe. So it's
yes.
interesting.
Oh, that
Really?
makes
the
it even
style
better.
is similar. The storyline it crosses over. So if you like John Wick, you're gonna love My Name Is
I
Nobody.
freaking love John Wick. The series of movies, they're so well done.
I remember I walked out of the first John Wick movie and I was like, oh, damn, I got to go home and look up the source material for this because it's so good and it gave you just enough tantalizing tidbits of world building that you're like, ooh, I want to know more about all this. And then I got home and I'm like, wait, it came whole cloth from some... this is the source material.
Yeah, exactly. It's like the Underworld series that Kevin Grevos wrote and pitched for however long. No, I actually took a bit of the John Wick universe into my current game with the coins. It's like they keep finding these coins that look like regular currency, but they're a hell of a lot heavier because they're made from a different metal. It's like instead of silver, they're made of osmium or something like that. It's just like, wow, this is a really heavy silver coin, heavy silver coin, and they're used as in like the John Wick style of, I'm paying for this with this coin. I'm paying. This is essentially a favor token kind of thing.
So funny you bring up osmium. When we were playing Champions back in the day, that was our adamantium, was osmium, because it's like the rarest metal in the world.
It's the densest.
Yeah.
So
that was like our adamantium parallel.
Yeah.
Oh, and
That's actually
good.
I'm dead.
Oh, anyone had a chance to power through season 5 of The Expanse yet?
No,
I have not.
I haven't even finished
season
3.
on Ted Lasso, which is delightful.
I haven't even finished season 3 of The Expanse. I have to go back and start from the beginning.
I should start all over
I
again.
started watching
Your Foundation's coming out too.
Yeah.
Oh, there's going to be a
I'm
Foundation
super excited.
series?
Yes.
Yes.
It's
Wow,
already
that-
cast and they already started shooting.
Boy, I hope they modernize it, because I just recently read those books, and they don't fucking hold up.
I just started reading them and I actually still like them, but yeah, they are a little... They're not bad.
I mean, they're written in the 50s, so of course they're super fucking sexist. Super fucking sexist.
Yes.
First thing I noticed is I read through the first... I just reread the trilogy.
That was my impression of iRobot when I read it.
Oh, yeah.
I read iRobot. It was already 60 years old at that point when I read it. So,
Speaking of Apple TV Plus shows, if you haven't had a chance, I also very, very strongly recommend For All Mankind. It's a show done by Ron Moore, the guy that was the head on Battlestar Galactica, the reboot.
Ooh.
And he was one of the writers on Next Generation and Voyager back in the day. But it's like alt history, early space race show.
Ooh.
So like the show starts with Sputnik, and that's like the connection to our world.
And that's
then
where
from there it
diverges?
spirals off
Okay.
into different historical thing. But it has like all the names you're familiar with. Like if you've ever watched The Right Stuff, or the early Mercury 7 astronauts and all that. Like all of those people are characters in the show, but it departs from our world onto a separate timeline pretty quickly after Sputnik.
Cool.
Very cool.
Now,
It's coming up on my feed.
How much is Apple? How much is that Apple subscription?
Like $4.99 a month or something.
Oh, it's not expensive.
No.
Okay, because I need another monthly fee, like I need a hole in the head. So I've been avoiding even looking at what they have on Apple TV.
Yeah.
I know that just after, like, into the new year, we're supposed to get season 2 on For All Mankind also.
Now do you have to have an Apple device in order to stream this shit?
You can do it off of Roku.
I don't have a Roku. I have an Xbox One. Can you do it off an
We
Xbox?
are getting all sorts of advice here for gaming. We should probably...
All right, I'll play this out.
We're advertising for Roku and we don't even...
What the fuck is this thing? What is going on? Okay. So anyway,
sponsored by beer.
Thank you, New Holland Brewing Company, for sending me a free bottle of beer in the little gift package. I'm very thankful, and I will put all the hashtags that you want me to put.
Super cool.
Now that I'm the beer influencer.
I will continue to be a consumer of your beverage as well, because I find it delicious.
And I'll set
have
this.
to try it.
I'll set the care package aside for you, Dave, so you can.
Stu puts the fluence in beer influencer.
I put the flu in beer influence. All right. Come on. Play.
Beer fluenza.
Beer influenza.
On viral.
A beer influencer.
Play. There it goes. Damn thing. Thank you for joining us for season 27? What is it? 27?
27.
27, episode 19 of Happy Jacks RPG Podcast. My name is Stu.
I'm Stork.
I'm Kadave.
And I'm Kurt.
Thank you for putting up with us today.
And I think we might see you next Saturday. Yeah, I think we should next Saturday at 11 a.m. Pacific time. So join us then. HappyJacks.org/live, and we'll see you then. Stay safe.
Thank you guys for showing up. We appreciate it.
Dungeons and Dragons. preceding program has been a presentation of the Angry Folk Media Empire.
You know, that's just like your opinion, man.